fellow curious minds, and welcome back to Tech Advantage, the podcast where we talk about technology, business, and personal growth. I'm your host, Tondow Abraham, co-founder and software engineer at BlueMind, and today on this podcast, we're going to talk about deadlines, burnouts, and discipline, and generally what it really means to be reliable in tech. This is not some theoretical type of episode. This isn't something I just read online. This is something I've lived through and learned the hard way. We're going to talk about the reality of deadlines. Let's start with something simple. In tech or business generally, especially when you're starting out, deadlines don't feel that serious. In school, you can submit late, you can negotiate, and sometimes nothing really happens. But in the real world, deadlines are not just timelines. There are agreements, expectations, and trust. When a client gives you a deadline, or when a team sets a delivery date, it's not just about finishing the work, it's about reliability. Because people are planning around you, designers are waiting, stakeholders are waiting, users are waiting also. So when you miss a deadline, you're not just delaying work, you're breaking trust. And that's something I had to understand deeply. So I'll share my experience. At some point in my journey, I was working on a project, and like most developers, I was confident. I believe I could deliver within a certain timeline. And I made a mistake that a lot of people do. I underestimated the work. I didn't plan properly. I didn't structure the execution. I relied too much on my motivation and not just systems and not enough on systems. And then delays started happening. Small delays at first, then bigger ones. And before I realized it, the situation escalated to a point where the client took a legal action. I got sued and it became a huge case. Well, fast forward, luckily the client ended up withdrawing the legal case, but that was a huge experience. That experience changed my perspective completely, not because of fear, but because I realized something important. It wasn't just about the delay. It was about what I didn't put in place to prevent it. I didn't communicate early enough. I didn't break the work into clear deliverables. I didn't really build a system that could survive pressure. And not just in tech and business, even in life generally, pressure is constant. So if your system is weak, your output will eventually fail. Now let's talk about something people don't really address properly. Burnouts. A lot of people think burnout is just being tired, but it's deeper than that. Burnout is when your energy is low, your focus is low, and your motivation is unstable, and you're still trying to perform at a high level. Majorly in tech, especially as a young professional, there's this pressure to prove yourself, take on multiple projects, say yes to everything, and over time, it catches up with you. You start feeling overwhelmed, start procrastinating, start missing timelines, and not because you're lazy, but because your system is overloaded. And this is where people get it wrong. Sometimes missing deadlines isn't just a discipline issue. It's also a structure issue. Because if your workflow is somewhat chaotic, your results will be chaotic. I've majorly experienced burnouts in so many works that I've had to take on. And when you finally are relieved from so many clogs of work, you then realize that you just had so much on your plate that was way beyond what you could handle, which you would have even prevented in the first place if you had a proper structure. So now we're going to talk about discipline versus burnouts. Here's where I want to make a very important distinction. A lot of people think discipline means working more, pushing harder, sacrificing everything. You know, we from the African perspective, we tend to tell ourselves the harder you work, the more successful you become and stuff like that. But that's not discipline. That really isn't. It's just overworking. Real discipline is different. Discipline is having structure, having a system you can follow consistently, even on days you don't feel like it. Why? Because let's be honest, motivation is not reliable. We all know this, but yet we tend to tell ourselves lies at certain phases of our life just because we want it. excel at a high level. You won't always feel like working. You won't always feel inspired. But if you do have a system, you would be kept a lot more accountable and consistent. And surely you'd still move forward. So instead of asking, am I motivated today? You should be asking, what system am I following? And that's the difference between someone who's burnout, someone who builds sustainably. Now, how to stay reliable? How do you actually become reliable? How are you able to build the trust of your clients, customers, employers, and just people in general? Let me share a few practical things that have helped me. First, break your work into smaller deliverables. Don't just say, I'll finish the project. Define clear stages and milestones. That way, progress becomes visible and manageable. Second, set realistic deadlines, not optimistic. Realistic ones because speed is good, but accuracy builds trust. It's one thing to say, I'll deliver within a period of time just because you feel you're optimistic about all of it happening. But if you give a more structured and a realistic type of deadline, you can still work on your optimism and be able to deliver in a shorter time than what you had initially proposed. And there you have a plus for delivering within a shorter time. But then if you're proposing a shorter deadline because you feel you're able to deliver and then something comes up, you're not able to deliver at that effective state that you had intended previously, which causes a bottleneck. Thirdly, communicate early. If something is going wrong, don't wait till it escalates. That alone can save relationships and opportunities. Fourth, build recovery time. Don't stack your schedule to 100%. Leave space because unexpected things will happen, as always. We're humans and so many things that could occur are unpredictable. If you stack up your schedule to 100%, you leave no room for anything like rest. Not even rest. Majorly life occurrences that we don't even plan for. All of these could deter delivery time, which is why you need space in your schedule. And finally, build systems, not pressure, because pressure might push you for a short time, but systems will carry you long term. So we've come to the end of today's episode, and here's the truth I want you to take from this episode. If you want to grow in tech, if you want to improve your business skill and generally be a more effective person, don't just focus on skills, focus on reliability. Because talent might get you the opportunities, but when you're reliable to people that give you opportunities to deliver on, it keeps them coming back to you for more and more of whatever you have to offer. Reliability is what keeps you there and sustains the relationship over time. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be someone that people can trust to deliver. And thank you so much for listening to Tech Advantage thus far. If this episode resonates with you, please do share it with someone who you'd like to give good knowledge to. Leave us a rating on the podcast and follow wherever you're listening to the podcast from. And as always, technology is your advantage.